tonight. Not so fast. Some experts say the Premier shouldn't have been so quick to dismiss federal net zero electricity targets as unrealistic. And having a dog will cost you more in Saskatoon as council finds ways to shave millions of dollars from its budget or risk hefty tax increases. Plus, some Regina City councillors want the city to declare a houselessness emergency.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It's Tuesday, August 15th. CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Hello, I'm Natasha Lipney, and thank you for joining us. Saskatchewan's Premier has called federal emissions targets unrealistic. That statement came after Ottawa released its draft clean electricity regulations last week. Now experts are questioning the province's response. Here's the CBC's Pratush Dayal with more.
It's a smoky day in Saskatoon due to forest fires, and Natural Resources Canada says climate change is expected to result in more fires. Ottawa has a plan to reduce emissions. Last week, it released its clean electricity regulations to reach net zero by 2035. Premier Scott Moe was quick to criticize them.
It's not achievable. It's unrealistic. Those are Sask Power's words, not mine. Our power utility can't actually achieve what the federal government sets us out to achieve, and it certainly isn't going to be affordable, as it will at least double the power rates in the province.
This economics professor disputes that. Brett Dolter estimates the price increase per kilowatt hour for residential power usage would be less than 1%.
So that's far from a doubling. It's not even 10% increase that we would see relative to operating the system without those regulations. So I'm not sure where that doubling number came from, but I don't think it's accurate.
Dolter says the federal regulations still allow for natural gas plants. New ones would need to be built with carbon capture and storage infrastructure, and others could run less frequently, used only as backup power when wind and solar aren't available.
Can we produce wind and solar for less than the cost of buying that gas from Alberta largely and burning it? And increasingly the answer is yes, as wind prices have come down, solar prices have come down.
SaskPower declined to be interviewed, but in a statement said the federal plan isn't feasible, technically, logistically, or financially. Some say it's their own doing.
Saskatchewan and SaskPower has dropped the ball in the last decade, and it's understandable that they are now in a difficult situation, but I don't think it's an impossible situation.
SaskPower also says the plan doesn't offer enough financial support.
In emissions from electricity.
This carbon price analyst says Ottawa is offering up tax credits and $40 billion.
Of that money, Saskatchewan will be getting the highest amount on a per gigawatt hour basis. There's $2.6 billion available to the province of Saskatchewan and SaskPower to cover some of the costs of this transition. And that's not a trivial amount of cash.
He says carbon emissions from electricity generation are still at 2005 levels, and the province needs to act. The Saskatchewan government has up to 75 days to comment on the draft regulations. Pratush Dayal, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Much of the province is once again blanketed in thick forest fire smoke. It's coming from fires raging in the Northwest Territories. Wind over the past day has blown the smoke in, leading to air quality advisories for almost the entire province. The Air Quality Health Index has gone up as a result. Saskatoon has been sitting at a level 10 out of 10 almost all day. Experts recommend staying indoors, especially if you have heart or lung issues, and wear a respirator-type mask if you have to be outside. Our weather specialist Ethan Williams has been keeping tabs on the smoke. It's been a big presence here this spring and summer, hasn't it, Ethan?
Yeah, that's right, Natasha. And now we have data from Environment and Climate Change Canada to show just how smoky it's been. In fact, in Saskatoon, we have had 179 hours of smoke so far this year as of this morning, and that is now a new record for the city when you compare year by year. The previous record was 1981, 162 hours of smoke during that year. And now keep in mind, just last year in Saskatoon, we were only looking at just 4 hours of smoke. So there can be huge variations kind of just year over year. Now, Regina, we did not break a record, or have not, at least so far. So far in 2023, we have seen 124 hours of smoke at the airport as of this morning. The record is actually 2015, 173 hours. So we still theoretically could get there. There's lots of forest fire season left to go. But keep in mind, even just a couple of years ago, Regina, we had some big numbers as well, about 147 hours back in 2021. That was from the forest fires that were burning in BC. Now, we still also have air quality advisories in effect for not only Regina and Saskatoon, but really a good chunk of the province, all through the north, all kind of through central Saskatchewan. And really the only part of the province not seeing it is extreme southern Saskatchewan. And it looks like we could be seeing more smoke moving in. So just how long is that going to be sticking around, Natasha? I'll have the details coming up for you in my full forecast.
Thanks for that, Ethan.
You're welcome.
We're learning more about the province's new Marshal Service. The Premier has signed off on a mandate for the new police agency, but as Adam Hunter reports, the opposition has questions about its independence.
This spring, the provincial government passed legislation to establish a new policing agency, and last week the Premier signed off on a mandate which lays out the objectives and how a new Marshal Services will function. The government says it will deter, detect, and disrupt criminal activity primarily in rural and remote areas, including offenses related to agriculture, farming, drugs, and gangs.
There are increases in crime on trafficking of drugs and or illegal firearms. There are increases in crime with respect to gang-related activity. And sadly, we are also seeing increases in human trafficking.
The Minister of Corrections and Policing says the Marshal Service will be spread across the province, eventually growing to 70 officers. Christine Tell says it will work alongside the RCMP and local police agencies. As to how that will look, she says, is a work in progress at this time. The union representing Saskatchewan RCMP officers has called the establishment of the Marshal Service completely unnecessary. The opposition says it's concerned about independence. The mandate indicates that the deputy minister will take the place of a board in regards to oversight. Nicole Saar says that's unlike any other policing arrangement in the country and a slap in the face to the rule of law.
It's not surprising, but it's very concerning. I mean, it matches a lot of the concerns that we had heard from stakeholders, especially those who are in policing, about the independence in particular.
Although it's not indicated in the document, Tell says that the deputy minister will be in charge of the Marshal Service only on a temporary basis until a police board is formed. Tell says the next step is to hire a chief marshal. She says that could happen within the next couple of months. The Marshal Service is expected to be fully operational in 2026. Adam Hunter, CBC News, Regina.
Moving to municipal politics now, 4 Regina City councillors want the city to declare a houselessness emergency. This comes after tents were torn down in front of Regina City Hall late last month. The councillors want to see a plan to address homelessness in next year's city budget. They also want safety guidelines for any new homeless encampments. Councillor Shannon Zakidniak is part of the alliance. She says they want action before winter.
Everyone that I've talked to has expressed a desire to work on this issue. I have not talked to a single person who said, who cares? Everyone that I've talked to wants for us to figure out how to address this situation. Nobody that I've talked to is interested in people dying in the streets of Regina. Of course, we may not all agree on what the answer is, but of course we have to at least have the conversations.
Their motion will be on tomorrow's council agenda, but it will only get discussed if council votes unanimously to move up the debate. Homelessness advocates applaud this latest move by councillors. Saskatchewan was one of only 2 provinces where the inflation rate fell last month. The 12-month consumer price index here was 3% in July, down from 3.3% in June. inflation went up nationwide. Statistics Canada pins most of the blame on gasoline prices, even though the cost at the pump has been falling. Increases at the grocery store have slowed too, but they're still causing a pinch. And mortgage rates posted another record year-over-year rise in July, climbing by nearly 31%. Saskatoon City Council continues to work through some serious financial issues. The city is still facing a $45 million budget shortfall over the next 2 years. Councillors agreed on a few price hikes and found a few savings, including less frequent sweeping of some medians. That change will save $200,000. Also, having a dog will cost you more in Saskatoon. The price of pet licenses is going up by 10%. That will bring in an extra $80,000 annually. And a hike in cemetery fees will generate $30,000 a year. The head of a local business group suggested that spending money fighting climate change should be put off, eliciting this response from the mayor.
I just have to ask, Mr. Moon, are you aware of some of the impacts of climate on cities right now, that whether it's trying to mitigate floods or dealing with the impacts of extreme heat?
Would you be looking at that? Again, I go back to the...
Council also resisted cuts to transit. All of the motions passed today will be formally decided on in the final budget meeting in November. The Saskatoon X didn't see quite as many visitors as it usually does, but organizers hope it was a safer experience for those who did check out the annual fair. Susan Kuzma says metal detectors and bag searches at the entrance kept the grounds safe. This was the first year with the enhanced security. One person got caught trying to smuggle bear spray onto the grounds. Others had booze. But that's not what surprised Kuzma.
Well, a lot of it was things that we knew were coming in, alcohol. There was a tremendous amount of actually marijuana that came in through the entrances as well. People obviously didn't realize that they can't consume outside of their home.
Kuzma says you can expect the bag searches and metal detectors in future years, but they're looking at adding an express lane for people without bags. He entered hockey lore by playing a Stanley Cup winning game on a broken leg. Bobby Baun has died at the age of 86. Baun was born in Lanigan, Saskatchewan, and would go on to play 17 seasons with the NHL as a defenseman, earning the nickname Boomer for his hearty hits. He won 4 Stanley Cups with the Toronto Maple Leafs in the 1960s. In the '64 final against Detroit, Baun took a shot to the leg by Gordie Howe. He had to be carried off the ice on a stretcher, but that didn't stop him. Ankle frozen and taped, he returned to score the winning goal in overtime. Stay with us. We'll be back with more after the break. It's been a week since wildfires devastated a town in Hawaii. Officials in Lahaina say they've recovered the remains of 99 people, including children. But the search is far from over, and that's raised some complicated questions about an important industry there, tourism. The CBC's Lindsay Duncombe reports.
Change of plans for Toronto's Tara Joy McNerthney.
I wouldn't feel right about having my normal trip where I visit my parents and I sit in the hammock and I look at the beach.
Instead of planning her wedding on this long-planned trip to Maui, she's packed suitcases full of donated goods.
Can I go swimming without thinking about people running into the water to escape the fire? No.
The question of whether or not to visit Maui is complicated. Some locals have told tourists to stay away, but the island depends on cash from tourists for 40% of its economy.
So for that reason, we want to protect all people in Maui, and it would be potentially catastrophic if no one traveled to the island.
There really is 2 different worlds in Maui right now, a vacation paradise and the horrific reality of the ongoing search.
Crews with cadaver dogs have searched just 25% of the affected area. Access to the site remains restricted, frustrating people who want to go home and see what's left.
The fact that they're making it difficult for us to try and go back to where we're from, It's just hard and unbelievable. I mean, I still have loved ones that's trapped, for example, my dad.
From President Joe Biden, who plans to visit the island, a repeated pledge.
Every asset they need, we'll be there for them. And we'll be there in Maui as long as it takes.
But there is concern government aid has been slow, leading neighbors to help each other. An effort McNerthney is happy to join, a changed vacation on a changed island. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Maui.
This weather update is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz Regina, proud member of the Capital Automotive Group.
Ethan joins us again for a look at our forecast, or at least what he can make of it through the smoke that we have here in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be a challenge these next few days, Natasha, especially right now, looking at the Air Quality Health Index forecast. The number on the left is tonight's forecast. The number on the right is tomorrow's. And this is on a scale from 1 to 10. And you can see through central and northern Saskatchewan again tomorrow, likely going to be in that high range once again. For southern Saskatchewan, we may continue to kind of see that break that we did today, especially closer to the southern border. There really wasn't as much as we saw further north, but Regina, once again, we could be in that moderate rating or so. So another good day to monitor your time outside and wear that respirator mask if you have one, especially the further north you are. And that's not it, unfortunately. Another large plume of smoke from those fires in the Northwest Territories, likely moving on very fast-moving northwest winds overnight tonight into tomorrow. And south and central could see that smoke again as we head through Wednesday and Thursday. So pretty much through all the work week here is when we're going to be having to contend with that smoke. It's still hot as well, especially in the southwest. Got up to 35 today in some places, including Leader and Maple Creek and Coronach, even still sitting at 35 right now. But you see that stout drop off in temperatures as you go northward, and that's because we are starting to see a little bit of rain move into the north, and it's from this low pressure system which comes screaming in here tonight that is going to be bringing some measurable rainfall to central and northern portions of the province. That moves through very quickly overnight. Tomorrow we'll likely see clearing early in the morning, or at least through the morning in south and central. That rain still hanging around a bit in the north, and then high pressure moving in after that. You can see all that cloud being cleared out as we head through tomorrow afternoon and into Thursday as well, albeit we'll still be contending with that smoke. Now, highest amounts likely through the Churchill region. A good 10 to 20 millimeters in spots, maybe higher if we see some thunderstorms. Central Saskatchewan, upwards of 5 millimeters, maybe 10 along eastern sections, but southern Saskatchewan, including Regina, we're really going to miss out on this rain again, unfortunately. What we're not going to miss out on, especially in the south, is very strong wind gusts overnight tonight and into tomorrow from the northwest, bringing that smoke down at times close to 70, especially in eastern sections of the province, but even through central and northern Saskatchewan in that kind of 40 to 60 range definitely can't be ruled out. But then high pressure moves in as we get into Thursday, and we'll start to see those winds diminish a bit. The other thing that we'll start to notice is that those winds are now coming from the south, so that means that forest fire smoke now getting pushed kind of back up north. For Regina, our temperatures will take a bit of a hit tomorrow as this system moves through with those very strong winds, but then that that low pressure system moves out. Temperatures rebounding quickly, close to 30 degrees as we head to the start of the weekend. Comfortable weekend for us, albeit breezy at times, possibly for the Rider game Sunday, and then a bit of a rainier pattern and cooler temperatures as we start next week, but our overnight lows staying pretty consistently in those mid-teens. Saskatoon, again, a cooler day tomorrow, warm on Thursday, and then those temperatures actually start to come down for you. We'll see increasing cloudiness through the weekend with overnight lows kind of, again, staying pretty stable there, but some rain and cooler temperatures definitely coming for Saskatoon and central Saskatchewan, Natasha.
Great. Thank you for that, Ethan.
You're welcome.
Remember that Donair costume the Alberta government was selling? The one that attracted bids from across the country? Well, the auction for the very realistic outfit has a winner, and it turns out the Donair will be staying in Alberta. An Edmonton-based chain paid just over $16,000 for it. The Alberta government ordered the costume some years ago for a public service campaign that didn't go ahead. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. 2 years ago, the government of Afghanistan collapsed. The Taliban rolled into the capital and took control. Since then, the hardline group has imposed increasingly restrictive Islamic rule, which is pushing women and girls further and further into the background. The CBC's Margaret Evans reports.
2 years after the fall of Kabul sealed the Taliban's victory, Afghan women are still fading from sight, barely visible. Each new law to subjugate them harder to recover from.
We are erased. We are annihilated. We are gone. We have no rights.
Renowned activist Mahbouba Siraj still can't quite believe it's happening.
The fear of women gatherings is becoming like a phobia here. What is this? Honest to God, I don't understand it. It is terrible. I mean, unbelievably terrible.
Some, like this young woman whose identity we are protecting for her safety, have found a lifeline through the internet, studying secretly courtesy of an online American university.
I can see some peers, some classmates on the university. We can exchange ideas.
She knows she has advantages compared to others. She has English and access to electricity and the internet. For now.
We are afraid of what will happen next. I have been talking to some other girls and they were saying, we are afraid. And one day they will say, you have to stop breathing. You have to stop living in this world. Yes, we are afraid.
We want freedom! We want freedom!
How then to help from afar? Western governments and Afghans themselves, wherever they are, don't agree on how or whether to engage with the Taliban.
I think meetings with the Taliban is indirectly legitimizing them as a form of government in power.
Given the hard realities of life in Afghanistan, Mahbouba Siraj doesn't want lectures from the diaspora.
If the people of Afghanistan die of hunger, all of us, what do I want to do with education? What do I want to do with the rest of the freedoms? I really don't need it. You see, that's where we are.
With the lines of the Taliban hardening, little boys being taught to disrespect their mothers, and little girls that they don't matter.
We are really depressed and we are, I cannot say how I feel because it's really hard.
More important than ever, to keep them in sight. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
And Ethan is back with one last look at our weather.
Well, still smoky tonight, Natasha, and I think we'll see some increasing cloudiness in Regina by midnight. Winds from the southeast, not too bad, but by the morning hours, those are picking up from the northwest, close to 60 already by 8 a.m. A mix of sun and clouds, 17, smoke and haze at times. And as we get to the afternoon, that's about where we'll land for our daytime high in Regina. Those winds very strong from the northwest. Now, Saskatoon, you get the rain starting at midnight tonight, and those winds will already be strong from the north, and after a good 2 to 5 millimeters potentially. Looking at those winds still by 8 a.m. Partly cloudy conditions, and again smoky by the noon hour. Otherwise mostly sunny, still very gusty, and that is pretty much where we are going to end up. So a cooler and definitely smokier and windy day tomorrow in the province, Natasha.
Okay, I'll look out for that. Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
Well, that's it for us tonight. For news anytime, head to cbc.ca/sask, or you can subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Ethan and I will be back with more local news at 11. Thank you for watching, and have a great night.